So I want to tell you a little bit something about our first speaker we're going to have, who is James, or to his friend Jimmy Vacca. And Mr. Vacca, Councilman Vacca, is a lifelong resident of the Bronx. And he received his degree from the State University of New York, his bachelor's degree, and he received a master's in urban studies from Queens College, CUNY. Let's hear it for CUNY. And now, after receiving his master's degree, he began teaching college political science and urban studies at Queens College and also at Monroe College. And so he was an adjunct professor at Queens, part-time professor there. And as an adjunct, he became a member of the AFT, Local 2334. Now, you might think that this is where his public service actually started, but no. His public service started at age 13, when he organized his fellow junior high school students to rally for better bus service from the MTA. And before long then, Jimmy Vacca was fighting for stop signs and traffic lights and fixing potholes and other local issues that affected his community. And then in 2005, James Vacca was overwhelmingly elected to represent the New York City Council in the Bronx's 13th district, which, as I've learned from reading his biography, represents about 100 communities in the Bronx. I'm not going to go through them all, but it's a lot. And at present, Mr. Vacca chairs the Committee on Transportation. And what we have found over the past year and a half, as many of us as advocates have been working with the City Council, his commitment to pedestrian safety for people who are blind and visually impaired has been outstanding and extraordinary. And we are thrilled, Councilman Vacca, to present you with this certificate that commends you on behalf of Baruch College and Computer Center for Visually Impaired People, and just commends you for your work in this area, and we'd love to hear from you. Councilman Vacca.
I thank you, Karen, and you know I thank all of you. I come here with a little bit of a perspective because my father was blind. So, a lot of what I do is because I know what he went through. And I can bring a little bit of that to this. I feel good about it. My father used to go for walks in the neighborhood, and we always used to worry about him. But he would say, I know which way the street goes. I know where to cross. I have my cane, and I know where the crosswalk is because there is the dip, which we know as an accessible crosswalk for the disabled. And he knew where the dip was. Then he would listen for a car, and then he would cross. Well, you know something, those dips were required for those who are in wheelchairs to have accessibility. Yet, when we think of accessibility, we never thought of people who are visually impaired. We had to fight, and Gail Brewer will talk about this, to have audible pedestrian signals. And we got 25 required now every year. 25 out of 12,000 traffic lights in the city of New York, and we had to negotiate this bill. That tells you where we are, but it also should be an indication of where we have to be. Every light in the city of New York should have an audible aspect so that people who are blind know when to cross and know when not to cross. To me, I don't want to hear cost. I wasn't interested. When I saw that negotiated bill, I went to Gail and her and I worked so hard, and I just said, oh no. You know, I believe in compromise. I feel I'm a conciliator. But on certain things, a legislative body should assert itself. On certain things, we want what we want. We are a co-equal branch of government. And I was not a happy camper that day, and I will not be a happy camper until war is done. Because why should any group in this city be denied a civil right? Accessing their own street. A piece of legislation we did pass would now require the Department of Transportation to post on their website when we make changes to our streetscapes and to post it in an audible way so people can understand. People who are blind they're not able to look at the printed information. There has to be an audible way at the DOT website for people to hear what has been changed, because as they navigate the street, to go to their doctors, to go shopping, to enjoy a movie, to see their friends, to go to a museum, they have to have that information at their fingertips. And I'm glad to say we passed that law, the mayor has signed it, and that's one area we moved ahead. Now, I also introduced legislation to require the cabs to have something in the back of the cab where if you are blind, you have an audible way to find out what the fare is. Right now, when you go into a cab, you ask the driver, how much do I owe you? What are you talking about? The average person doesn't say to the driver, how much do I owe you? The average person sees a meter and pays what the meter says and then determines what the tip should be. Well, why shouldn't a blind person have the same right? So I introduced legislation requiring that this equipment be in every cab in the city of New York. And of course, again, people want to talk about it and talk about it. Sometimes I get tired of talking and talking and talking. I want to do things. I want to do it. And I understand that the legislative process requires patience, but I have to confess to you, I often don't have patience. So a big segment of the yellow industry came forth and said, Mr. Vacca, we like what you're proposing. We know your legislation has to be talked about, but we're willing to do it. We're willing to do it in our segment of the yellow industry, which this segment now comprises 6,000 yellow cabs, and it will be 18,000 yellow cabs over a 3-year period. And this model will also be used in other major American cities. It's going to be in the back of the cab. You will have to call an 800 number, and I can give you all this information. You get a card free of charge through the 800 number, and then you swipe the card when you're ready to pay. And the machine will talk to you and will tell you how much you owe. And then when it talks to you, you will press in how much you want to give as a tip. And are you paying by credit card or are you paying by cash? This will all be done audibly for people who are visually impaired. So I think that we're on the right track when it comes to that. Serving the visually impaired community is an honor for me. I know we have over 300,000 people in the city who are visually impaired. That's a large, large number. And I think what we're doing now, I think how we're progressing. I think of our elderly. When my father became blind, he went for mobility training, he went for life skills training. But you know something? My father was fortunate. My father had myself and 2 sisters, and he had my mother. I want to make sure that the blind person who is independent, because they have to be independent, are given the skills to be as independent as possible. To go to the store, to have the equipment at his house, to live a full life, to participate in government, to be an advocate. Those things are very important to all of us. They are a right. They are a right. And when I talk about these things, I want to be clear. And I mean the mental health services, and I mean the other things that my father never availed himself of, because my father said, I didn't need it. Oh no, he needed it. He needed it. He had a great disposition, and he was always telling jokes and everything else. But you know what? After what happened to him, he needed it, and I needed it.
And I'm not ashamed of it, because what happens is you go through a family adjustment. You go through, and the person who's blind goes through an acclimation period, an acceptance or non-acceptance. So I'm aware of those issues too. But unless the services are there, and unless the city council is an activist when it comes to these things, and you push, and you push, and you find people of like minds who feel as you do, then you can develop a constituency, which I don't think was there in the past. I see it now, and I'm glad to be part of it. And Karen, I want to say, is fantastic. She's always at the council, always there, always with an opinion, always stressing the importance. Why do you laugh when I say that? Why do you laugh when I say that? Karen, they know that you're an opinionated person. And we need that because she holds our feet to the fire. We have to have our feet held to the fire. What are we elected to do? We're elected to serve you. And we count on people like this to make sure we do our job honestly. So I thank you very much for having me. I love to come back.
Thank you very much. I'm not an opinionated person. Anyway.